This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Parshas Boy. So in Parshas Boy, we're introduced for the first time to the mitzvah of Tefillin. So we're going to discuss this week, Mitzvah Hashem, over the next couple of weeks. This is really a major topic, and discussed before, but never in as great depth. So we're going to go through the sugya of Tefillin, the two different types of Tefillin. Of course, we know there are different two versions of the Tefillin. There are the Parshas of Rashi, Parshas of Rabbeinu Tam. And to go through the development of the sugya, it's a fascinating inyan. Okay, the Gemara says in Masechta Menachos, how do we know there are 4 Parshas in the Tefillin? Where does it say? It doesn't say anywhere in the Chumash explicitly that there have to be 4 Parshas in the Tefillin. We know that of the 4 Parshas, 2 of them are in this week's Parsha, right? You have Kadesh Li and V'haya K'viyacha at the end of this week's Parsha. Then you have Shema in Devarim and Mishnah Torah in Parshas Vaschanan. And then you have V'hayam Shemaya in Parshas Ekev. So it's interesting, you have 2 in Shemais and 2 very close to each other in Sefer Devarim. But where in the Torah does it say what should be in the Tefillin? It doesn't say anywhere explicitly. I mean, maybe you should put Parshas Noach in the Tefillin. It doesn't say anywhere. First, B'chlal, how do you know there are 4 Parshas in the Tefillin? So Gemara Masechta Menachos brings down a Braisa, Tan Rabbanan. It says, L'toit afos, L'toit afos, L'toit afos. 2 of them are Chasar. 1 of them is Malay, Harei Kan Daled. So we have 4 Parshas. So I checked it up this morning. There are actually 2 of them are Malay. But that's what the Gemara says. How our version of the Sefer Torah coincides.
That's why you have Rabbi Kiva.
What?
That's why you have Rabbi Kiva.
They're not arguing on the oisios and that's machlokes, how you write the word. I don't know. Yeah. But anyway, what the lashon of the Braisa is, it says l'toit afos 1 time chaser, another time chaser, and a 3rd time malay. Harei kan daled. Divrei Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Kiva Omer, Eino tzarach, you don't need this limud. Why? Because the word toit afos, tat, bekaspi shtayim, in the Caspian language, tat is 2. Anyone here speak Caspian? Right? Fluently, right? Tas be'afriki shtayim, and in African, tas is 2. So you have tat and pat, 2 plus 2. According to higher mathematics, is 4. Yeah? Now, why the Torah is writing all of a sudden in Caspian and in African, we're being very politically correct, but since when does the Torah write in African? Well, the meaning is like this. Because the first language with which Hashem created the world was Lashon HaKodesh. All the languages are actually a distortion of Lashon HaKodesh. I know someone who's writing a book that he has like this. That he has 70 different permutations of a word, and each one of those permutations makes a different language. So in other words, let's say the word fins, right, in English, fins. How do you say fins in the Torah? Snapir. Well, snapir is the word fins. You just rearrange the letters, right? Snapir. Samach, nun, pei. But if you make it pei, nun, samach, you get fins. So one way of getting a language from Lashon HaKodesh is backwards. One way is taking the second letter. So he has a whole theory. But what we all accept is that the world started off with Lashon HaKodesh. So all the Gemara means to say is not that the Torah is all of a sudden speaking African or Caspian. It just means, in Lashon HaKodesh it means 2. V'haraya, kat is 2. Tat is 2 in Caspian, and pat is 2 in African. It doesn't mean we're using an African word. It just means the Africans or the Caspians took this Lashon HaKodesh word to mean 2 for their language. Okay. So that's what the Gemara says. So we have 4 Parshas in the Tefillin. Okay.
So each one of them is 4 basically.
So tat is 2, pat is 2.
Yeah, but there's 3.
No, so Rabbi Kiva says you don't need the limud of chaser mala. You don't need that. Each word by itself is 4.
So why do you have it 3 times then?
For whatever reason, the Torah is writing the mitzvah of... Yeah, okay. Now, Lamaisa, Tosa says that's a nice drasha, that toitafos is 2 plus 2. But what does the word toitafos mean as is? What does the word toitafos mean? So Tosa says, le toitafos, nira, the lashon toitefes hu haroish etzel hametzach. The word toitefes means it's the part of the head near the forehead. Kamai, like in the Gemara and Shabbos, there are certain kinds of ornaments, certain kinds of jewelry that women wore on their heads. Or another meaning of toitefes, it's a lashon of looking, habata, vision, like the Gemara in Megillah that says the duck walks around with his eyes low, but meanwhile he's yenting around, singing, vas titzach, far in the distance. So toitefes is a lashon of habata, looking, gazing. Okay, and then Tosfos says, what does the word tefillin mean? What does the word tefillin mean? Tosfos says, tefillin nira lashon vikuach. The word tefillin means a language of proof, clarity. Kamay vayifalel. Sha'asa pelilo isim koina. It says in Tehillim, vayifalel pinchas. It doesn't mean he davened. Vayifalel means he made clear. He had an argument. He demonstrated. Tefillin demonstrate that God rests His name on a Yid, on a Jew. Okay. But here's the $1 million question. And that is, how do you arrange the Parshas in the Tefillin? Yeah? How do you arrange the Parshas? You say, well, what's the Shaila? You put them in order. Right? You have 2 in this week's Parsha. Kadesh li, v'haya kiviyacha. And 2 in Devarim. You have Shema, v'hayim Shemaya. That's how it should be. Well, you have to learn the Gemara. It says the Gemara, Menachas Lamed Daled Amud, look at number 3. Tan Rabbanon. Ketzad Sidron. What is the order of Tefillin? Kadesh li, v'haya kiviyacha, miyamin. On the right side, you have Kadesh li, and v'haya kiviyacha, from this week's Parsha. 2 Parshas on the right side. Shema, v'hayim Shemaya, mismael. And on the left side you have, what do you have on the left? Shema and v'hayim Shemaya. Okay, simple as that.
What's the left side? I'm a little bit confused about the left side.
Okay, good question. In other words, when you have 4, the right 2 are being called the right, and the left 2 are being calling the left.
You mean on the four
Of the 4 Parshas, or the 4 batim on the shell,
okay,
right? Shel Rosh, the 2 on the right are called the right side, and the 2 on the left. Even though you'd say, what do you mean? Why are 2 of them being called the right? Only one of them is on the right, and only one of them is on the left, and the other 2 you could call the middle. But that's a simple way of learning the Gemara. The 2
You're talking about forward facing.
I'm not okay. I'm not there yet. I haven't given you that much information. We're leaving it unclear right now. Right now, the 2 on the right are Kadesh v'haya kiviyacha, and the 2 on the left are Shema v'hayim Shemaya. The Gemara asks v'hatanya ibcha. We learned in a brisa just the opposite, that Kadesh li and v'haya kiviyacha are mismael on the left, and Shema and v'hayim Shemaya are on the right. Marabaye loy kasha. Right, you got the stira. One place it says the right is Kadesh li v'haya kiviyacha, and the left is Shema v'hayim Shemaya. And another place it says Shema v'hayim Shemaya on the right, Kadesh on the left. It says Marabaye loy kasha. Kan miminoi shel kairei, kan miminoi shel maniach. One brisa is talking about the right side of the one reading the Parshas. When I stand opposite you, what's on my right side? And one brisa is talking about the right side of the one wearing it. In other words, if I stick out my right hand, I'm sticking it out to your left hand. And when I stick out my left hand, I'm sticking it out to your right hand. So one brisa is talking about from the perspective of the one who's looking. One brisa is talking about from the perspective of the one wearing it. B'hakoirei. But if the one who's standing opposite the one wearing it were to read it, Kairei Kesidron, he would be able to read it in order. Says Rashi, what does this mean? Take a look at the Rashi. Look at number 4. Ketzad Sidron. What is the order of Tefillin? Seder Hanachasan, the way you put it on. Kan mimin shel Kairei. Kan miminoi shel meineach. One is on the right side of the reader. One is on the right side of the one putting it on. Kisha Kairei oimed keneged maniach. When the reader stands opposite the one wearing it. Have a yeminoi shalzeh l'smal shalzeh. The right side of A corresponds to the left side of B. V'hakoirei koirei kesidran. And the one who reads it in order. Keseder shehein ksuvin b'Torah. So here's our first shita. If you're looking at someone wearing tefillin and you were to read the Parshas, you would be able to read it in the order that it appears in the Torah. Mukdam, mukdam, uma'uchar, ma'uchar. Whatever comes first, and whatever comes after, comes after. Hilkach, hadiktani la'el. Therefore, that which it says earlier, Kadesh, v'haya kiviyacha miyamin. The brisa that says Kadesh and v'haya kiviyacha are on the right side. Not on the right side of the one wearing the tefillin, but on the right side of the one looking at the person wearing the tefillin. Miyaminoi shel kairei kamar, the right side of the one reading. The hashta kishu kairei kedarkai. Now, when the one looking at the tefillin reads the parshas in a usual way, miyaminoi l'smaila, he reads it from right to left. V'nimsa kairen kesidron, and it comes out, he reads it in order. But the brisa says, no, on the right side is Shema v'haya im shamaya. Yeah, that's on the right side of the one wearing it. Now it comes out that the person wearing the tefillin does not have Shema in the most right part. Really, v'haya im shamaya is in the most right part. Because the one reading it reads Kaddish. He sees, let's say, I'm reading and Alvin's wearing the tefillin, yeah? So I see on my right side first Kaddish, then V'haya Kiviyacha, then Shema, then V'hayim Shemaya. Now, your Parsha of Shema is not on your right side. It's the second from the right. The one most on the right is V'hayim Shemaya. But that's how Rashi understands. Miminoi shel maniach doesn't really mean all the way on the right side. It means the right half as opposed to the left half. Okay? That's v'hadatanya ibcha, that the Rashi ends. That which we learned in a brisa fakeret, the mashma kadesh v'yim kviyacha mismoil, that it says kadesh and v'yim kviyacha are on the left side. It means on the left side of the maniach. Shu yamin shel kaira, which is the right side of the reader. So Rashi has already established for us his shita. According to Rashi tefillin is Kadesh, v'haya kiviyacha, Shema, v'haya im shamaya. But not so fast. That's only the way I see it. But the way you see it, in other words, the order that it's in on the one wearing it, what order does the person wear the tefillin? He puts in v'haya, it's in backwards. Right? V'haya im shamaya on his right, and then the next to the right is Shema, and the next to the right is v'haya kiviyacha, and the next to the right is v'haya kadesh likol b'char. Okay, that is the shita of Rashi. All Jews wear Rashi tefillin, at least. Okay, says the Mechilta. Okay, so that's the opinion of Rashi. Take a look at number 5. The Mechilta is the halachic medrash on Sefer Shemais. Look at number 5. V'haya la'ayis bi'arba mekaymois maskirin Parshas tefillin. Says the Mechilta, there are 4 places that mention the Parsha of tefillin. Number 1, Kadeshli. Number 2, V'haya kiviyacha. Number 3, Shema. Number 4, V'haya im shamaya. Mikan amru mitzvahs arba parshas shel yad hem krach echad. The mitzvah of the 4 parshas of the hand are one long parchment. Arba parshas shel rosh. The 4 parshas of the shel rosh hem arba toitafes ve'elohem kadesh li v'haya kiviyacha shema v'haya im shamaya. The Mechilta sounds very clear, exactly like Rashi. Kaisvan Kisidron, you write them in order. V'imloi kasvan Kisidron, and if you did not write them in order, Harelu Yignazu, you have to bury the tefillin. So it's not enough to put it in order. It's not enough they should be arranged in order. They also must be written in order. For instance, so if you write Shema, and then you write V'hayim Shamaya, and then you go back and write Kadesh Li V'haya Kviyacha, Pasol, according to the Mechilta. Now I'll just give you, if you turn over your sheet for a moment, if you want to know what Rashi tefillin look like, just, I know it's exciting, but we don't need any music to, yeah? Okay, so let's see. Let's see Rashi's. Let's take a look at page 2. So we have here a diagram of Rashi tefillin. And this is from the perspective of the one wearing it. Yeah, you see that? The right side of the maniach. In other words, if you're wearing, this is from the perspective of the one wearing the tefillin, not from the perspective of the one reading the tefillin. So this would be on, if you could cut this out, you'd put it on your head as is. Okay? Where V'hayam Shemaya is on the right, Shema Yisrael next over V'haya Kviyacha, next over Kadesh Li. That is from the perspective of the Meniach, and of course the reader would be reading it from the left side of the Meniach to the right side of the Meniach, which is from the reader's right to left. Kadesh V'haya Kviyacha, Shema V'hayam Shemaya. This is the Shita of Rashi. Does everybody agree with Rashi? Just joking, right? Does everybody agree with Rashi? Okay. Take a look in Taisus. This is Taisus and Menachos Daf Lamed Daled Amud Beis. The HaKoirei Kesidron. One who reads it in order. Perish B'Kuntris. Rashi explains, Keseder Shehein Kesuvin B'Torah. The way they're arranged in the Torah, Mukdam, Ma'uchar, Hilka Chadik Tani La'el, Kadesh V'haya Kviyacha Mimin. When it says the Kadesh and V'haya Kviyacha are on the right side, that's Mimino Shel Koirei, on the right side from the reader's perspective. The Hashta, and now the reader, Keshu Koirei, Kedarkoi, Mimino L'Smoiloi, Nimsa Koirei Kesidran. The Kasha, the Rabbeinu Tam. You ready? Rabbeinu Tam's Kasha. You ready for Rabbeinu Tam's Kasha? Amai Palginu. Why would you divide the Tefillin in half? Shekare Shteyen Harishonos Miyamin V'chol Hachronis Mismael. Why would you call the first two the right side and the other two the left side? Why would you include two on the right and two on the left? It's not two on the right, two on the left. How could you say that Kadesh Li and V'haya Kviyacha are on the right? Only Kadesh Li is on the right. How could you say Shema V'hayam Shemaya is on the left? No, only V'hayam Shemaya is on the left. I mean, when you say right and left, there's only one right and only one left. Everything else is in the middle. Why would you call it right and left and refer to two on the right and two on the left? The first one should be the right, everything else the left, or the opposite. The Gimel Rishonis Mimin, that the first three are on the right of it, and the fourth one is on the left. In other words, why would you cut it in half and everything on the right side comes under the category of right, and everything on the left side comes under the category of left? And Tosfos brings rayas from Shas that normally we don't just split things in half and say this is the right and this is the left. The right, like the Ner Ma'aravi of the menorah. Do we have 3 or 4 Ner Ma'aravis and the rest are Ner Yaminis? No. There's one Ner Ma'aravi, there's one on the left, and everything else is not the left. Why do we have this general category of right and left all of a sudden? And therefore, look on the first wide line of Tosfos. Rabbeinu Tam disagrees. Umefarish Rabbeinu Tam. Rabbeinu Tam explains, Kadesh v'haya kviyacha mimin shel karei. Kadesh and v'haya kviyacha are on the right side of the reader, but only one of them is the right, the Kadesh. Umismal shel karei, and the left side is Shema. Shema is the outermost parsha on the left side, not like Rashi. Kadesh v'haya kviyacha Shema v'hayim Shemaya. No, Kadesh v'haya kviyacha on the right, and on the left, the outermost one is Shema, and the innermost one, the inner one is v'hayim Shemaya. Mimin she'u mismal shel karei, have Shema mi b'achutz v'yacharei v'hayim Shemaya mi b'fnim. And now we understand why we divide it. Because yes, Kadesh is the only one on the right, and Shema is the only one on the left.
I apologize, I came in late. Somebody puts it on. The right is the one. The right is the one facing the left.
No, the right and left are. If you're wearing the tefillin, according to Rashi, and I were to read your Parshios, so it's going to be the way I see it is going to be the opposite for the reader, for the wearer, right? So then I would be able to read it Kesidran, Kadesh, V'haya Kviyacha, Shema V'hayim Shemaya. But in terms of your right, according to Rashi, your rightest most parsha is V'hayim Shemaya, Shema, V'haya Kviyacha, Kadesh. Right, like we have on the diagram on page 2.
So that's somebody who's reading someone who's putting on his left hand?
It doesn't matter. No. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, right?
No, it doesn't matter.
Look at the head only, okay? Look at the head.
No, but even the arm, it doesn't matter which arm you can put on, the reader's going to be able to see it the same way. Okay. So Tosfos disagrees with Rashi, and Tosfos feels, like if you turn over your sheet, look in page 2, Tosfos says no. From the perspective of the reader, it's Kadesh Li in his leftmost side, then followed by V'haya Kiviyacha, but the only difference is the Shema and the V'hayim Shemaya. That according to Rashi, the reader would read it in order. And according to Rabbeinu Tam, V'hayim Shemaya is in the middle, and Shema is on the right side of the wearer and the left side of the reader. Okay? The way to remember the Shita of Tosfos, and Tosfos says, take a look for a moment. Rabbeinu Chananel also agrees with me, says Rabbeinu Tam, in Sanhedrin, because Rabbeinu Chananel learns the Gemara that says, Kol bayis hachitzayin she'eno royes avir pasal. Any outer box that cannot see the air is pasal. What are the outer boxes? Kadesh and Shema. According to Rashi, Shema is not an outer box. Yeah. Shema is in the middle. Says Rabbeinu Chananel, Zarayo, Shema is on the outside, is the outermost box. That for the wearer, Shema is on the right side, and for the reader, it's all the way on the left side. Says Tosfos, you ready for this? It's not only me, it's not only Rav Haigain, it's not only Rabbeinu Chananel, Rav Haigain as well, earlier than the Rishonim. V'chein Rav Haigain. Rav Haigain also wore Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin.
I'm saying Rabbeinu Tam wore Rav Haigain's tefillin, actually.
Right. But
and the Rach also was before.
So right, even though Rav Haigain and Rabbeinu Chananel came before Rabbeinu Tam, nevertheless, Rabbeinu Tam is we give him credit for these tefillin, and he's bringing proof that it's not only him. V'haya meiniach simin. You ready for this? And Rav Haigain would give a simin how to remember the correct way to wear tefillin. Havayos lahadadi. The two shem havayos are in the middle. What does that mean? That means, if you take a look at the word v'haya, the word v'haya is an unscrambling of yud kei vav kei, shem havaya. Rabbeinu Tam says you want the two shem havayos to be next to each other. You want them to have good company in the middle. You don't want to be mafsik the two havayos. So the way to remember the shita of Rabbeinu Tam and the shita of Rabbeinu Chananel and the shita of Rav Haigain is havayos lahadadi. You want to have the havayos in the middle. And says Tosfos more than that. V'chein b'tshuvas hagaonim. This is also the shita of the tshuvas hagaonim. Shekasav harav Yosef toiv elam. The tshuvas hagaonim that was written by Kadmon, Rav Yosef toiv elam. I think Rabbi Friedman's show is called, right, something like Beis what? Beis the Ulam. Okay. And they also wear Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin, right? But Rabbi Yosef Toiv Elam also maintains the shita of Rabbeinu Tam and Rabbeinu Chananel and Rav Haigain. What does it mean? Ha-koirei koirei kesidron. According to Rashi, the reader could read in the order of the Torah. Kadesh v'haya kiviyacha shema v'hayim shemaya. But according to Rabbeinu Tam, you're going to be reading it Kadesh v'haya kiviyacha v'hayim shemaya shema. So it's not in order. It's not what it means, says Rabbeinu Tam. When it says koirei kesidron lav kamosh perish b'kuntras keseder sheksuv the Torah, it doesn't mean that. It means something else. Okay. And then Tosfos says, look in the next line. What about the Mechilta? We mentioned, look at number 5, the Mechilta says pretty clearly, like Rashi, Kadesh v'haya kiviyacha shema v'hayim shemaya, and it says you have to write it Kisidron. Says Tosfos, uva Mechilta mashma, keperish hakuntras. The Mechilta is definitely mashma like Rashi. The Parshas v'haya kiviyacha, the Tani Hasam, Medal Mekamis Masker Parshas Tefillin. 4 places the Torah mentions Tefillin. Kadesh v'haya kiviyacha, shema v'hayim shemaya. Mikan Amru Mitzvahs Tefillin Arba Parshios. And then the Brisa says V'hadar Katani. Then it says Kaisvan Kesidron you write it in order. V'im kason shloi kesidron yignazu. Mashma, that implies keseder sheshanan v'reisha. It needs to be written in the way that it mentioned earlier in the Brisa. Says Tais is fine. So write it that way, but it doesn't mean maybe you have to put it in the Tefillin that way. Maybe really I'm right, Rabbeinu Tam, Rav Haigon, Rabbeinu Chananel. And yeah, when you write it, you have to write it Keseder, but it doesn't mean you have to put it in the Parsha Keseder. Nah, it's not mashma that way in Mechilta, and therefore Tais concedes that the Mechilta is mashma like Rashi's Pshat. And then Tais cites an ancient work called Shimusha Rabbah, which is also mashma like Rashi. So Rabbi said, what do we have right now? We have the Shita of Rashi, we have the Shita of the Mechilta, we have the Shita of the Shimusha Rabbah. They all say, V'hakoyrei koyrei kesidron is Kadesh, V'hayakviyacha, Shema, V'hayim Shemaya. And then we have the Shita of Rabbeinu Tam, and Rav Haigoin, and the Rabbeinu Chananel, and Rav Yosef Toiv Elam, that they all say Havayos Bahadadi.
Rabbi, even the introductory tefillah before putting on film.
Who says you say that?
Well, for those of us who have time to say that.
Right? No, but I'm saying even if you do have time.
It doesn't match either one.
What?
It doesn't match either.
Why? What does it say? I think we had a share whether from the Noda B'Yehuda was not a proponent of that tefillah.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah.
It's in a different. It's not like Rashi or like Rashi.
Why? What does it say there? Well, from the perspective of the one wearing the tefillin, according to Rabbeinu Tam, it is Shema, Vayim Shemaya.
Kadesh, it's not.
He's saying the tefillah of the tefillin. What does it say there? Lo Shem Yichud. Oh, that gets into a big shaila.
You skip the Shem Yichud. It's further down.
Shema v'hoyem shemaya kadesh v'hoyem kviyacha. So he's saying it's not like. It's definitely not from the perspective of the koyrei. Elamai from the perspective of the wearer. I hear.
Kaddish is out of order, no matter what you do.
Right. I hear. It's a good point.
So we'll make favor from there from now on.
Good kasha. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe by the end of our journey, we'll have an answer to your kasha. I don't know. I can't answer right now. So that's what we have. We have the two shitos, Rashi, Rabbeinu Tam, Beroisha. What is the opinion of the Zayar? What is the opinion of the Zayar HaKadosh? So Tikkunei Zayar says, take a look at number 7. Tefillin dereishe de kutshabrichi. The tefillin of the head of the Rebbeinu Shalom. Di'ihu vav, ihi hei, ila ima ila, ataras teferas. Allah itmar, pe'ercha chava shalecha, elu tefillin shabarosh. V'hai ihu raza de havaya. Did Marbei?
Can you do that again?
Yeah, I'm not translating, I'm just reading the words.
Okay.
Did Marbei, Hine Yad Hashem Haya. Uveginda, Ukmuhu Mare de Talmuda Yushalmi, Havayos Be'emsa. Says the Zayar HaKadosh. That is why the masters of the Talmud Yerushalmi, they tell us you need to have the two Vahayas in the middle. Yad, Yud Ke Vav Ke Miyamina, De'idmar Ba, Vayar Yisrael Sayed Agdoila, Misitra the Chesed. Now if you want me to explain what the Zayar is saying, sorry about that. But if you want to know what the Shita of the Zayar is, he says very clearly, Havayos Be'emsa. So the Shita of, I'm not going to say the Zayar, this line of the Zayar is clearly Havayos Be'emsa, like Rabbeinu Tam. Like Rabbeinu Tam. Now the question is, what do you mean the Yushalmi? We have Yushalmi on Menachos? We don't have Yushalmi on Menachos. What Yushalmi on Menachos? Well, the Chida writes, Nishem Agdoilim, on his comment on Yushalmi, right? We know the Chida wrote a tremendous bibliography on all the Mechabrei Svarim that lived before him in one section, and all the names of Svarim in another section. And one of the Svarim the Chida speaks about is Yushalmi. And he says, Kasafti benidfas daf mem chesam beis denir me haravid. It appears in the Ravid in his Hasagos of the second parak of Bikurim, and the Rav Magid, parak Chav Zayin of Mechira, that they had Yerushalmi on Seder Kodshim. And the Rambam also, in his Hakdama to Mishnayos, also says he saw Yerushalmi on all 6 Siddharim. And says the Chida, I'll bring you a nice proof that there's Yerushalmi on Kodshim, because if you look in the Tikkunei Zayar that we just quoted, he says, Uvaginda, Ukmuha, More de Talmuda, Yerushalmi, Havayos be'emtza. So this is a proof. Now, the Chida is not talking about Rabbeinu Tam as opposed to Rashi. Chida is just commenting on the existence of Yerushalmi. And the Chida says, I'll prove to you there's Yerushalmi on Kodshim, because the Zayar quotes Yerushalmi on Menachos. But Agav, we see that the Shita of the Zayar over here is that, like the Shita of Rabbeinu Tam. And the Ravid, in his commentary on the Sefer HaYetzirah, if you open up your handy Sefer HaYetzirah, you'll notice that there's a commentary of the Ravid, not to be confused with the comments of the Ravid on the Rambam. Right? You know what Shakespeare said. No? Wherever you have a Rambam, the Ravid is not far behind. Right? It's a famous Shakespeare. He says, the Ravid says in his commentary of Sefer HaYetzirah, Shehu Ra b'Talmud Yerushalmi, Niseder Kodshim Havayos be'emtza. So now we're stacking the weight over here. Now we're giving Rabbeinu Tam. Look, Rabbeinu Tam has Rabbeinu Chananel on his side. He has Rav Yosef Tov Elam on his side. He has Rav Haigoin on his side. And he has the Zohar on his side, Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. And Rashi, him in the Mechilta. But the big question here is, what does the Rambam do? What does the Rambam hold? What is the Shita of the Rambam? Like Rashi or like Rabbeinu Tam? This is going to be a very interesting question. What kind of tefillin did the Rambam wear? So, the Kesef Mishnah was written by Maran Bet Yosef, by the Beis Yosef. He brings down, look at number 9. He brings down a Tshuvas HaRambam, a question the Rambam was asked. Yoreinu Rabbeinu, teach us our Rebbe. Ma shekasa per gimel ketzad sidur ha-parshas b'tfila shel rosh. What is the order of the Parshas? Kama. B'tfila shel rosh in the head tefillin. Machnes Parsha achroina. First you put the last Parsha v'hoyim shamaya b'bayis rishon. Shehu yamin al yamin hamaniach. So that's what the Rambam writes. You put in the last Parsha v'hoyim shamaya in the first bayis, which is the right side of the maniach. In other words, like who? Rashi or Rabbeinu Tam? Rashi! The Rambam says you should wear Rashi tefillin. V'nachnu tamidcha. But wait a second, they asked the Rambam, we're your students. Kibalnu mi Rabbeinu. We have a tradition from our Rabbeim, shekilblu mehagoinim, that receive from the goinim. Rabbeinu hai b'rosham. We, your students, Rambam, we have a tradition for of Haigoin. So what are you telling us to put on Rashi tefillin? But our Messiah is to Rabbeinu Tam tefillin, Abayas Emtza. And it's Mavur and Sanhedrin, because Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rav, that the Bayis Chitzain is Kaddish and Shema. Says the Rambam. You ready for this? This is one of the best things you'll ever see. You ready for this? Says the Rambam. You have a tradition from Rav Haigoin that Havayos Be'emtza. Let me tell you a little history about how tefillin wearing developed. Says the Rambam, Tshuva. This that you have an opinion about the arrangement of the Parshas. The klaf, shu hachilek shesher da'ogvai. He's also talking about another in about klach. Kach hayadaiti. Says the Rambam. The way you think to put on tefillin, havayos be'emtza, that's the way I used to think. So not bad. You're not too far off. The way you wear tefillin is the way I started off wearing. Mikaydem, kach hayadati mikaydem. Kachem, like you. Utfillin shayli b'marav, says the Rambam, when I was in the West, not in America, But when I was in what? In Spain, kach hayu. My Spanish tefillin were Rabbeinu Tam. V'chach kasav oisa shekasav chibur b'tefillin sheshmai Rab Moshe Bar Maimon mi Kortova. Not only were my tefillin like Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin, but there is a great man who wrote a work on tefillin. His name is Rab Moshe Bar Maimon from Kortova, who is basically the Rambam's imposter. And we once had a shiur on it last year, Parshas B'Shalach. There is another man in Kortova named Moshe ben Maimon, who is also a great Talmid Chacham. And by the way, sometimes if we have a stira in the Rambam, one way out is, you don't have to make shtei dinim, shtei Rambams. Not a joke. The Rechidah talks about it. There's another Moshe ben Maimon in Kortova. Va'oisoi chibur hu shehetani. Says the Rambam, my imposter fooled me. When I read his work, that the tefillin should be havayis be'emtza, I accepted it. And not only was I fooled, but all Spanish Jewry was fooled. V'hitte kol anshe marav milfanai. V'gam ha-Rab Yitzchak, zechroinu levracha, kavasei Yisrael b'tshuva, also Rab Yitzchak held like him. V'gam chacham echad yesh shemai Rab Yaakov Kili.
Which Rab Yitzchak are you talking?
I don't know. But he was a big person. V'gam chacham echad. What? V'gam chacham echad yesh shemai Rab Yaakov Kili, kacha asa. V'harbe ga'oinim cholku al davar zeh. But you should know, says around, and many Goinim argued on our practice. V'chol anshe Mizrach, all the men in the east argued on us. V'chol anshe Eretz HaTzviya kadmoinim cholkum al davar zeh. And everyone who ever lived in Eretz Yisrael were not like Rabbeinu Tam, more like Rashi. V'amru, and they said, Ki ha-chachomim ha-ne'amonim, that honest, trustworthy chachomim, paschu ha-tefillin sha'Rabbeinu hai. That you claim you have a tradition for Rab Hai going to wear Rabbeinu Tam tefillin. It's not true. Because they opened up Rabbeinu Hai Goin's tefillin. V'hiksuva ala seder keshekasavti b'chiburi. You claim Rav Hai Goin had Rabbeinu Tam. He had Rashi tefillin. V'Rab Moshe Deri. No relation to Aryeh. Yeah? Rab Moshe Deri. Kishabam and Amariv. When he came from the west, L'Eretz Yisrael. Haisa tefillah shaloi k'mayan shemekayimchem. He had Rabbeinu Tam tefillin. And when he showed it to the Rabbanim in Eretz Yisrael, they took the tefillin and they threw it out. That's how much they held that Rashi is right, Rabbeinu Tam is not correct. Not only did they not hold that we paskin like Rashi, they held that's not tefillin. They held Rabbeinu Tam is not tefillin. So when Rav Moshe Deri brought his tefillin from Spain to Eretz Yisrael, and they showed Rav Moshe Deri the words of the Goinim HaKadmonim and their rayas, Hishlich Tfilav. He tossed his tefillin. So therefore the Rambam concludes definitively like Rashi. So now we have Rashi and the Mechilta and the Rambam against Rabbeinu Tam. And Rabbeinu Tam quotes Rav Hai Goin, says the Rambam, you take Rav Hai Goin out of your camp, put it on our scales. Because we opened up Rav Hai Goin's tefillin, he had Rashi tefillin. So Rabbeinu Tam, we started off Rabbeinu Tam, Rav Hai Goin, Rav Yosef El, and Rabbeinu Chananel. Well, Rav Hai Goin is out. The Rambam also went over to Rashi. It's only Rabbeinu Tam and the Rabbeinu Chananel. But Rabbeinu Tam has a Zohar on his side. He has Rav Shimon Bar Yochai on his side, and he also has the Yushalmi on his side. Comes along with Shlomo Kluger, and he says, "Not so fast, Rabbeinu Tam. Before you put the Zohar on your side, you should know the Zohar himself also says like Rashi elsewhere. So it's really a machlokes in the Zohar. So don't be so fast. I wear Rabbeinu Tam tefillin because I'm a big makubal and I hold like the Zohar. Well, which Zohar? Which page in the Zohar do you hold like?" Says Rav Shlomo Kluger. Look at number 10 in the Shas Tshuvos Uvacharta B'Chaim. He says V'derach Agav Oidiyehu. Derech Agav, I want to let you know. De beplukta de Rashi Rabbeinu Tam be'inyan hanochas ha-Parshas. Hine plukta zu matzasi be'ezos Hashem behakdama l'tikunei Zayar. Yeah, it's machlokes Rashi Rabbeinu Tam. It's a machlokes Tanoim. It's not a machlokes rishonim only. It's machlokes Tanoim. Why? Because if you look in Tikunei Zayar in Tifus Mezrich on Daf Tes Amud Aleph, says the Zayar Yud K Vav K are the Dalet Parshios. Yud Kadesh Li, Hey V'Haya Kivyacha, Vav Shema Yisrael, Hey V'Hayim Shemaya. Wow, who is that like? Rashi. The Zayar says explicitly like Rashi. Hari Nakat Kedas Rashi. And on the very next page, V'Yachar Kach Ba'Amad Beis Sham Kasav V'Istamar Havayos Be'emtza. Not Yud K Vav K. Yud, and then Hey, and then Hey, and then Vav. Yud is Kadeshli. Hey is V'Haya Kivyacha V'Hayim Shema Vav is Shema Yisrael. Harei Kedas Rabbeinu Tam. Imkein Muchach Degam B'Yemei Rab Shimon Bar Yochai Kvar Hoysa Plukta Zu B'Tefillin. Now that's an amazing thing.
Wasn't Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai the only author of the Zohar?
No. First of all, no. Rab Shimon Bar Yochai did not write even one word of the Zohar. He dictated it to his Talmud, Reb Abba. But it's also from many Tanoim and Amoram. So he was the primary contributor to Zohar, but he's not the only one. You'll see Amoram quoted in the Zohar. So, but Rav Shimon Bar Yochai was what? Yeah. Okay. So this is an amazing thing, because what we like to discuss in future shiurim is that there are countless areas in halacha which are machlokes rishonim, and we don't try to fulfill both shitas. For example, you're not putting two mezuzos on your door. Nobody puts two mezuzos on their door. Nobody wears, I shouldn't say nobody, majority of Klal are not wearing two pairs of tzitzis. One light Rashi, one light Rabbeinu Chananel. We don't make kiddush twice. You don't have four different lulavim. You paskin, you paskin shailas. Why is it when it comes to tefillin, is basically the only Indian in halacha, you eat two kinds of matzahs. This matzah is you do a mitzvah and you hope achrei ram lahatais. Why by tefillin is really the only Indian where your yotzei, the mitzvahs say dairaisa, two different ways? The answer is many machlokes rishonim began in the times of the rishonim. So it's a relatively newer machlokes. But now we're learning that the machlokes about tefillin is not only a machlokes rishonim. Rashi and the Rambam against Rabbeinu Tam. This goes back to the times of the Gaonim, goes back to the times of the Tanoim. So in other words, each way is so established, is so early established since ancient times. Perhaps that's the reason why there's more of an inyan to be yotzei all the shitas, but that's something we're going to have to explore in upcoming shiurim. Okay, let's go a little further.
The entire Talmud is machlokes Tanoim.
Yes, but the Gemara usually concludes. We have machlokes Abai and Rava. Halacha, we paskin like Abai or Rava. In other words, if Shas paskins, there's nothing to talk about the other shita. But this is the Gemara Menachos doesn't paskin. So now we have age-old machlokes that never got. Right? It was not Nimnu v'Gamru. Okay. Comes along the Drisha. Now, so that's what we have. We have ourselves machlokes rishonim, which according to Rav Shlomo Kluger was actually a machlokes Tanoim. So we said, what kind of machlokes is this? Why don't we just find out what kind of tefillin Moshe Rabbeinu wore? No? Go into they went to the bottom of the Red Sea and they found the wheels of Paro's army, so go find out. We don't know when Moshe Rabbeinu is buried. So find out what kind of tefillin Yeshua ben Nun wore, Yecheskel wore. Okay, so guess what? We found it. We found Yecheskel. Ready for this? You want to know what kind of tefillin Yecheskel Hanavi wore? You say, what? What are you talking about? You found Yecheskel tefillin? We found it. Says the Drisha, Seder Hanachasan bebatim l'Rashi, u'Rabbeinu Tam Seder, Kasvu smag v'hamordechai. Sheshilchai Ksav Me'eretz Yisrael. The following document was sent from Eretz Yisrael. Shenofla Bima She'al Kever Yecheskel. A wooden board fell that was on the grave of Yecheskel Hanavi. Umatzai Sham Tefillin Yeshenim Ma'oid. And they found very old Yeshanim Ma'oid. Keseder Rashi. They found Rashi's tefillin from the time of Yecheskel. V'chein kasav harambam, v'harajba, kulam eskimu. V'chein hela beisoyis v'shem rova pais. You know why we wear Rashi tefillin? Because Yecheskel Hanavi wore Rashi tefillin. What more do you need to know? You have machlokes Tanoim, Shkoich, not anymore. Yecheskel wore Rashi tefillin, as reported by the Smag and the Mordechai. Says the Drisha, it's not a raya. It's not a raya that Rashi is right. Pink faket. It's a raya against Rashi. It's a raya Rabbeinu Tam is right. Why? Because if these were kosher tefillin, what'd they bury them for? They're kosher tefillin. Why would they bury it with Yechezkel? You know why they buried it? Because Rashi's wrong, and they had to be goynes the tefillin. It's a raya to Rabbeinu Tam. You're bringing a proof. Everyone, it's like, the Dead Sea Scrolls. Look, they used the ancient Hebraic script. No, they didn't. They did not. Most Jews, right? You ask them, what kind of script did they use? The ancient Hebraic script. No, we don't. The consensus of the Rishonim, they did not use that. They used Ksav Ashuris. Yeah, but when I went to the Israel Museum, I saw the Dead Sea Scrolls. Yeah, that's why they were buried, because they didn't have Kedusha. The Ramban writes that whatever they use for... But all the coins are in the ancient Hebraic script. Exactly, the Ramban says that they didn't want to sully the Hebrew language by putting it on coins, so they had a different script to put on coins. But those are not the way they wrote Sifrei Torah. In any event, that's what the Drisha is saying. You're bringing a raya to Rashi from the fact that they found buried Rashi tefillin. They buried it because they weren't kosher. The Sefer made a mistake. The Sefer had temporary amnesia, and he learned the wrong pshat in the Gemara Menachos, and he accidentally wrote Rashi tefillin, so they buried it. What? It could be, right. So we're not going to bring a raya brura to Rabbeinu Tam from the fact that Rashi tefillin were buried. But you can't bring a raya to Rashi from the fact that they were buried. Maybe the reason they were buried is because they weren't kosher.
The psul is just, there's nothing wrong with them. It's the wrong order. Why is there psulim?
That's the Bach. But even the Bach is not totally clear because it's good for Shal Rosh. It's not good for Shal Yad.
We'll see. So you say what? You say why they have to bury them?
You just change them around.
Shalyad. What about the shalyad? It's written on one parchment. So could you, according to the Bach, cut them and then repaste them? But that's what says we're jumping ahead of ourselves. We're going very fast. Okay? Says the Drisha, V'shamati mishem moiri. I heard in the name of my Rabbi, Dein Listor Seder Rabbeinu Tam, Mima Shematzut Tefillin B'Kabrei Cheskel. You can't ask a kasha, you can't disprove Rabbeinu Tam from the fact that they found Rashi's tefillin in Yecheskel's kever. Kedivei Rashi, Sha'adarabba, the Rabbeinu Tam Matzil name, or Rabbeinu Tam you could say, Shepsulin Ayu, they were apostle, Kivin Shekasan, Moisen HaSeder, because they were written out of order. You could say they're puzzle because they were written out of order. That's why they were buried in his grave. Kedin Svarim, Psulin, Shenikbarim, V'nitmanim, B'kivrei Shel Tzadik. Like puzzle Svarim that are buried in the kever of a Tzadik. So comes the Bach, and the Bach says, wait a second. You have to bury the Tefillin because they were not put in correctly? The Bach says, "V'yesh doichen they'll feed the psulin havu ganzim l'sham v'lo nehira lo yotzrichin geniza." You don't have to bury them. Ella lehachlif hanachasam mibayis elabayis. All you need to do is rearrange them. What? Good kasha, right? Now that might only work in the tefillin shel rosh, but not in the tefillin shel yad. But if you look carefully at the Drisha said the reason they had to bury them is not because they were arranged in the batim in the wrong order. It says because they were written in the wrong order. They were written in the wrong order. And this is really Rabbi Kiva Eger's kasha. Rabbi Kiva Eger wants to know, let's say you find tefillin shel rosh arranged like Rabbeinu Tam. Could you just quickly rearrange them? Or do we say the following? If we paskin like Rashi, that means Rabbeinu Tam tefillin are pasul. So if a sofer had in zin, if the sofer had in mind to write tefillin like Rabbeinu Tam, that's like he had in mind to write it shaloi l'shman, let's say somebody had in mind, they just want to practice calligraphy. And after they finish, it's pretty nice, let me put it in tefillin. It's not kosher tefillin. So maybe, if somebody wrote, you can't just rearrange tefillin. Let me rearrange that. But if the Sefer had in mind to write Rabbeinu Tam tefillin, that means according to Rashi, he had in mind to write tefillin which are apostle. If he had in mind, so maybe it's considered written Shaloi Lishman. Says Rabbi Kiva Eger, come on. Get a life. The Sefer doesn't have to have in mind, I'm writing tefillin lefi the shita of Rashi. The Sefer just has to have in mind, I'm writing kosher tefillin. I'm writing tefillin. I'm writing it l'shem kedushas tefillin. There are two legitimate shitas. We paskin like one of them, but you can't say that if he had in mind to write Rabbeinu Tam tefillin, it's like he had in mind to write a kameya ba'alma. His kavanah doesn't have to be so precise that he has to be mechavin to write Rashi tefillin. As long as he had in mind to write l'shem kedushas tefillin, that's considered lishma. However, Rabbi Kiva Eger says, I'll bring you a raya that you could rearrange them. The clear raya from the Bach. Because the Bach says that what does the Bach say? The Bach says, don't prove that Rashi is wrong from the fact they had to bury Yechezkel's Rashi tefillin, because if they were puzzle, you wouldn't have to bury them, you could just rearrange them. As Rabbi Kiva Eger, you see from the Bach, that if the Sefer had in mind to write Rashi tefillin, if the halacha is like Rabbeinu Tam and the Sefer had in mind to write Rashi tefillin, then you could just rearrange it, and vice versa as well. If the Sefer had in mind to write Rabbeinu Tam tefillin, you could rearrange it to make Rashi. But says Rabbi Kiva Eger, that's the Bach Shita. But the Drisha, who wanted to bring a raya against Rashi, from the fact that the tefillin were buried, the Drisha obviously holds that you can rearrange it. So says Rabbi Kiva Eger, it sounds like my shaila about tefillin written according to one shita, to switch it to the other shita, it sounds like that would be a machlokes, the Drisha and the Bach. Because the fact that the Drisha felt you could bring a raya against Rashi from the fact that the tefillin were buried, that means the Drisha holds you can't just rearrange the Parshas, you would have to bury the tefillin. But then Rabbi Kiva Eger says it's not mistaber that they argue about this point. And then he says, bottom line, it's very possible that you can't rearrange the tefillin. Why not? Not because of ksiva shaloi lishman, but for the following reason. If you take a look in the last paragraph of Rabbi Kiva Eger, what's the halacha? If anyone here, nobody has to admit to it, but if anyone here wears Rabbeinu Tam tefillin, are you allowed to keep Rabbeinu Tam tefillin in the same bag as Rashi tefillin? No, you have to have a separate bag. Why do you have to have a separate bag?
To confuse them.
Because if the halacha is like Rashi, then Rabbeinu Tam tefillin are not tefillin. They're just the kameya ba'alma. Are you allowed to keep your pens in your tefillin bag? You allowed to keep if you have a mirror, you allowed to keep it in your tefillin bag? You can't keep a davar chol in the tefillin bag. Well, if the halacha is like Rashi, the tefillin Rabbeinu Tam are a davar chol, you're not allowed to keep them in the tefillin bag. That's why the Shulchan Aruch writes, okay, there's not Musar, it's a halacha and Shulchan Aruch, you have to have two separate bags, Rashi and tefillin. Because if Rashi's right, then you can't keep your Rabbeinu Tam tefillin in the bag. So says Rabbi Kiva Eger, you cannot switch Rabbeinu Tam tefillin into Rashi tefillin. Maybe yeah, maybe no. It depends. If you wear Rabbeinu Tam tefillin, and you hold, well, maybe the halacha is like Rashi, maybe the halacha is like Rabbeinu Tam. Well, if the halacha is like Rabbeinu Tam, then the halacha is not like Rashi. That means Rabbeinu Tam is tefillin, Rashi is not tefillin. Then how could you switch Rabbeinu Tam to Rashi? But then you're being moired them in kedusha. You're descending them in kedusha. You're taking them down in kedusha. Says Rabbi Kiva Eger, if you go like Roiv of Klal Yisrael, that the Yikr is like Rashi, and Rabbeinu Tam is only a chumrah, then you could switch Rabbeinu Tam into Rashi, because we paskin be'ikr, the halacha is like Rashi, and Rabbeinu Tam is only a chumrah ba'alma, so you could upgrade from Rabbeinu Tam to Rashi. But if you wear Rabbeinu Tam because you really feel that maybe the halachas are Rabbeinu Tam, and have to do both because maybe like this, maybe like that, then you can't switch Rabbeinu Tam into Rashi. So it depends what your usual practice is and why you would wear Rabbeinu Tam tefillin. If you wear it just out of a chash, but really the ikar the halachas like Rashi, then you're allowed to upgrade Rabbeinu Tam tefillin into Rashi tefillin. But if you really are concerned for both opinions, both Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam, and maybe this one is right, maybe that one is right, then you would not be able to upgrade, or it wouldn't be an upgrade, you would not be able to make one tefillin into another pair. So Rabbi says, so where are we holding now? This is where we're going to hold off until next week. And that is, we have the Shita of Rashi, that v'hakoirei kari kasidron, and that is Kadesh v'hoya kviyacha shema v'hoyim shemaya. That is the opinion of Rashi. That is the opinion of the Mechilta. That is the opinion of the Rambam. According to the Rambam, Rav Hai Gaon also had Rashi tefillin, and according to Rav Shlomo Kluger, there is an opinion in the Zayar like Rashi as well. On the other hand, you have Rabbeinu Tam, and you have Rav Yosef Tov Elam, and you have Rabbeinu Chananel, and you have a comment in the Zayar, and you have the Shita of the Yushalmi in Menachos. What did Yecheskel Hanavi wear? Well, one thing we know, the tefillin in his grave were Rashi tefillin. Why they were Rashi tefillin? Some want to say because he wore Rashi tefillin. Some want to say because they were pasul tefillin. And some say that's not a reason to bury them, because you could always switch the Parshas. Okay, Rabbi say we will pick it up here in Mitzvah Hashem next week. Shkaya.
Thank you.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.